Eli, I almost moved you to the audience. Clubhouse really needs to change where that button location is because it's like
It's
make
crazy.
moderator, move to audience. It's like,
Right.
you know,
It's crazy, right?
it's like that meme. Oh my god, we need to make that a meme where it's like the guy's looking at the two red buttons. You know that one?
Yes.
Yeah.
Both buttons are red, and he's like,
hmm It's but yeah, we totally need to make that meme like move to audience, make moderator, move to audience. So I'm inviting some of the people up here that some of the regular family. How you doing, Eli? It's good to see you over.
I'm
I can see you, but nobody else can see you right now in the video feed because we
not
got the
yet.
countdown.
Not yet. We got to do the countdown first.
Yes, and then we'll get into today's news. And I'm just preparing everyone. Okay, we are going to mention the three letters a couple times. So. All right. And here's the countdown. Reservoir goes public. Lupe fiascos. NFTs. Live Nation's live streaming setup. Triller's new CEO and acquisitions. Napster has 5 million users. And why do you want to sell your catalog? Plus, what's a day without your daily Spotify updates? We have a lot to talk about, but first, let's turn to my co-host, Eli Window. Eli, how are you? Good to see you.
I'm doing great, Peter. It's good to see you too. It's kind of a gray day here on the East Coast, but it's a great day too. So it's good to see you.
Yeah, fantastic. Yeah, I mean, for anybody that's tuning in Clubhouse, Eli and I can see each other right now because we are live streaming it as a video. So, so this is what we do every day from 12 p.m. to 1 p.m. It's the Music News Power Hour, and we scour the World Wide Web for music business news that we find important, and maybe you will too. So, how it works is I'm going to be reading some articles directly from the headlines. You can find those headlines and links to the articles in our show notes. And you can find our show notes at musicindustrycity.com. And there's a little graphic that says Clubhouse Information Center, and click on that, and that'll take you to the show notes. There's a button there, or you can scroll down. It's an embedded Google Doc, so depending on what platform it is, you'll be able to see it right there. Please feel free to raise your hand during the topic if you'd like to come on stage and offer your thoughts. And just please note this is being recorded and live streamed. So just want to make sure we get clear that because, terms and conditions, privacy policy, all that stuff with Clubhouse, we got to say that. And that's why there's the red dot. If you enjoyed this, want to tune into more programming because we do more shows on Clubhouse. We do live streaming shows. Join us at musicindustrycity.com. We can register for free, send you out that weekly email. And if we don't, for some reason, we don't invite you up to speak, that doesn't mean that we just probably didn't see you or we're reading something. So feel free to raise your hand. And if there is some articles that we might have missed, feel free to just bring the topics to the table. All right. And with that being said, we have a lot to talk about, but hey, let's talk about this day in history. Eli.
All right, let's do it. Let's talk about this day in history. Thanks, Peter. On this day in 2001, punk pioneer Jerry Ramone, singer of the Ramones, died after losing a long battle with lymphatic cancer, aged 49, in memory. Moving on, celebrating birthdays. Today, 1944, Dave Edmunds, Welsh singer-songwriter, guitarist, actor, and record producer, was born. On this day, 1948, Michael Kamen, American composer and orchestral arranger, was born. He worked with many acts, including Pink Floyd, Queen, Eric Clapton, David Bowie, and he also co-wrote Bryan Adams' ballad, Everything I Do It For You. And how many of us had to dance to that in high school? We had to. Happy birthday. Also, happy birthday today, born 1965 on this day, Linda Perry, Songwriter, producer, singer for Non Blondes. Wrote Beautiful for Christina Aguilera, plus Jewel, Courtney Love, Gwen Stefani, Sugar Babes, Melissa Etheridge, and Gavin Rossdale. They've all recorded Linda Perry's music. So, Linda Perry, happy birthday today. Born this day, 1965. Also born today, 1978, Puerto Rican singer-songwriter and actor Luis Fonsi, best known for the song Despacito, a remix with Justin Bieber and Daddy Yankee. Also born this day, 1980, Patrick Carney, drummer for the Black Keys. Happy birthday, everybody. Moving on to this day in history. April 1957, on this day, Jerry Lee Lewis released Whole Lot of Shakin' Going on Sun Records, a classic. On this day, 1999, the body of Tammy Wynette was exhumed from her grave in an attempt to settle a dispute over how the country music legend died. A new autopsy was conducted on her a week after three of her daughters filed a wrongful death lawsuit against her doctor and her husband and manager, George Ritchie, claiming they were responsible for Tammy Wynette's death 12 months ago. Ritchie said he requested the autopsy because of the allegations made against him, straight up forensic files style. On this day, 2010, after receiving some bad news and even enduring some boos during her performance, Whitney Houston brushed off criticism of her first show in the UK in over 11 years by insisting she was playing to a tough crowd. She had recently been hospitalized with a swelling of the membranes in her nose and throat. Total class all the way, brushing it off. And finally, on this day, April 15th, 2015, it was reported that digital music revenues matched physical sales for the first time in 2014, thanks to strong growth in the streaming market. Wow, that's some record-breaking, groundbreaking, pioneering stuff in the streaming market in 2015. And that's it for this day in history. Over to you, Peter. I think you're muted.
Hey, there you go. It's a good thing you could see me talking and not hear me, because then it's like, yeah, it's like we can see each other behind the scenes here. So we're working this out. And every time I kick over to you, I gotta have it automatically kick my mic back on because I'm doing this all myself, pressing the buttons. Yeah. So what comes to mind? Leave Whitney alone.
Right. Can we just not boo Whitney, please?
How do you boo Whitney? I mean, I just don't see it. I just don't see it. All right. So hey, let's get into the news. All right, we are going to start off. This is from musicweek.com. And once again, if you want to follow along, then we have the play at home version of the board game, where you can go to musicindustrycity.com and click on the graphic that says Clubhouse Information Center, and that'll bring you to all the show notes where we have the links to all the articles that we covered throughout the week. So by the time we get to Friday, we have about 40 to 50 articles, and that's why tomorrow is the week in review. So and we appreciate people like sending us articles, sending me DMs. Thank you for sharing those, and this is great. And that's what it's about. Is we bring some in, but if there's some other topics you think you want to bring to the table, and we'll talk about it. That's what it's all about. So, continuing on, a lot of news lately about companies going public and SPACs and everything. So, Reservoir confirms merger and NASDAQ listing. Reservoir has announced a merger that would result in the publisher going public on the NASDAQ stock exchange. Reservoir Holdings is to merge with NASDAQ-listed Roth CH Acquisition Company, a publicly traded special purpose acquisition company, also known as a SPAC, with $115 million in trust. Upon closing of the transaction in the third quarter of 2021, the combined company will be renamed Reservoir Media, Inc. The transaction gives Reservoir Media an enterprise valuation of approximately $788 million. Following the transaction and after payment of transaction expenses, Reservoir is expected to receive approximately $246 million in cash. Founder and CEO Gulnar Khosrowshahi will continue to lead the combined company. According to the announcement, Reservoir will be the first independent music company to go public in the United States, and also the first female-founded and led music company to be publicly traded in the United States. Yeah, go. All right. It's really great news. And then she continues to say, from day one, our mission has always been to be the best independent music company in the industry. Today, we have taken an important step forward in Reservoir's evolution to fully realize that vision through our partnership with Roth CH2. Our dedication to our songwriters and artists and their music is at the heart of everything that we do, and this path to growth supports our promise to service our clients, enhance value, and build a quality catalog. I'm immensely proud of what we have built here alongside President Ciel Relafgue and our incredible team whose excellent skills, high-touch client service, and outstanding track record is unmatched. So this is from Music Week. You also find this from some other articles. I think it's really interesting now that, we're looking at independence going public. All right. So
I
we're
think
going to
what's
talk.
interesting now is that there are more ways now to release than ever. It's just mind-boggling.
Yeah, and it's what is this like? We see consolidations, mergers, acquisitions. It's been a crazy market for the last 18 to 24 months. So what does this mean for independent market share, things like that? So we'll see. And gives them more leverage. And maybe that'll really be able to do another thing to help out artists as long as these investments go well. So we are going to talk about the three letters, NFTs. And I just want to compare these two articles in a sense, the value here. And again, feel free to raise your hand and jump up to the stage if you have any thoughts on any of these topics, or if there's something you want to bring to the table. For the back half, we open up it's an open round table. All right, Don Diablo's. This is in DJMag.com. Don Diablo's hour-long concert NFT sells for $1.2 million. The Dutch DJ sold the NFT via auction site Super Rare. All right, starts off. Don Diablo sold the first ever hour-long concert NFT for 600 Ethereum, or the equivalent of around 1.2 million. The 60-minute show, titled Destination Hexagonia, was created exclusively for the auction and filmed over a year as a collaboration with videographer Paul Snyder, with green screen effects and 3D rendered characters and sets, all in keeping with Don's sci-fi aesthetic. The NFT was sold as a one-of-one and will be delivered to the auction winner via a unique USB stick, which contains the video file of the auction. Don said, at this point, we almost feel like this particular piece has become priceless because we worked on it for almost a year and put an incredible amount of love and effort into it. What's next? I've got some incredibly exciting collaborations lined up, and I cannot wait to share it with the world very soon. So this is just the beginning. He also founded his own Hexagon Foundation, quote, which Don has created in order to help artists in the NFT space. Money from the auction will be invested back into the foundation. It's not yet clear if the video will be made available to all now that the auction is complete, or if it's sole propriety of the NFT owner. You can get a sneak peek at the concert in the trailer. So again, it's in the show notes, DJ Mag. You can take a look at that video. Interesting that money is going into something for good to help educate musicians on NFTs, because that is something that is sorely lacking, is true education on what NFTs are and what you can do with them.
I feel like no one ever really had an opportunity to understand what NFTs were. Just maybe not no one. I misspoke. But perhaps the public at large never had time to understand NFTs completely before you could mint them free of charge. Maybe, not sure.
Well, that is going to be the next one. Hey, I just want to shout out to Brad. Oh my God, I haven't seen Brad in years. Brad, what's going on? I just want to say hi. Brad Soroka's out there. We used to work together. Oh, I don't even know, like over 20 years ago. So, but let's continue with the NFTs here. And this one is from Music Ally. Lupe Fiasco gets into the NFTs games with live stream tie-in. So he's the latest artist, starts out the latest artist exploring the non-fungible token space, working with a pair of startups, Origin and Future Stream. The twist here is that Fiasco's NFTs will be tied to a live stream concert. Lupe Fiasco's Food and Liquor, which will be held on Future Stream for buyers of his 5 open edition example, not limited in numbers availability. NFTs, they will also get access to an online meet and greet after the concert with the promise of, quote, exclusive access to limited edition physical merchandise and premium digital content, the latter including AR, Instagram, and Snapchat filters. The five NFTs ranged in price from $215 to $2,015. And according to, they did some stats here based on the site's publishing figures that tells you how many times these were minted. So the 2 to 115 I Gotcha NFT was minted 61 times, so that generated over 13,000. Getting up to 7 people stumped up for the $715 Daydreaming NFT, and then 9 bought the 1,115, and 15 people went for the $2,015 Kick Push NFT, generating a total for all $65,000. It's interesting. I like this kind of model here. These are the numbers, and we discussed this from yesterday. Did the NFT bubble or reburst? I'm like, first of all, it wasn't in a bubble. It was an excitement. It was the new car smell. It was the shiny new object to look at. NFTs are still young, still figuring it out. And there's going to be a correction. I mean, the $62 million, $2.6 million, $11.11 million headlines are really sexy. But when you start seeing it used in this kind of area, and they're even saying like since February the peak, it's like value has dropped 70%, which fine. There's going to be a correction. And, it's not no alarm for like some kind of dead cat bounce or anything. It's just a correction. It's people are interested. It had a peak. Now let's see how this rolls out. This goes for like the long tail.
I do like the idea of, I know I've become the resident NFT poo-pooer, but I do like the idea that some of these, in the first instance especially, are being used for good. And I don't mean that profit isn't good, but I mean it always struck me with this type of thing, especially with these properties going for such high price tags, that it did kind of ring a little bit tone deaf during a time when so many people have either completely lost their industries or completely lost their homes or completely lost so much that suddenly a new hot property was selling for just exceptionally high amounts of money. But to hear that somebody is using it in a way that will give back and maybe generate some economy for the industry, it does seem to have a much better shine on it than some of the other properties I've seen.
There was an auction yesterday by PAC, and I think that's still ongoing. And I'm not quite sure whether it ended yesterday, but he was auctioning a pixel as an NFT. And the last I saw, it was well over $1 million.
Andy, I'm sorry, did you say a pixel?
A pixel.
Well, that's kind of a derivative of the one that just sold at auction for $62 million. That goes back over a decade. The person's like, pay me $1 for a pixel on my website. And then it was there was the million pixels. And then, so he made $1 million, it grossed $1 million because, it's $1 a pixel. Now that's the one that sold for over 62 million at auction.
That's amazing.
And we're right back in the gutter.
See?
Sorry, Angela.
All right. Let's move on to Live Nation. Live Nation and Veeps to set up 60 plus major venues for live streaming. This one comes from Variety.com. And I'm going to click this back over here. So, in a move that shows live streaming will be part of the concert experience, even in a post-pandemic world, Live Nation Entertainment, the world's largest live entertainment company, and Veeps, the live streaming platform, Veeps, co-founded by Joel and Benji Madden of the band Good Charlotte. The companies announced that they have started equipping more than 60 concert venues across the United States to offer turnkey live streaming. This new Veeps setup gives any artist playing at one of these venues the ability to live stream their event to fans across the world. The company selected venues that are already regular tour stops, giving artists lots of flexibility to choose when and where they want to add the element of live streaming to a show. Some of the venues go live will first include the Fillmore in San Francisco and Philadelphia, House of Blues in Chicago and New Orleans, the Wiltern in Los Angeles, and a number of amphitheaters including Shoreline and the George in Washington. All right, so it's really, I like this. I mean, what I found is there were venues doing this years ago, and or you could get. Originally, it was like, hey, we're going to put a camera here, and you can get a videotape of your show. And then some got into live streaming, but it wasn't there. Like, people weren't interested in live streaming. It wasn't exciting. It still might not be exciting. It depends on how it's produced. But the fact that the mixed economy, I'm really trying not to say the word hybrid model. I want to say mixed model. And because hybrid model is going to be overused, so let's call it a mixed model. Is that the fact that people will be able to artists will be able to generate more revenue just by having, it could be a little uptick. I mean, if you're doing a show and you're a fledgling artist and you're lucky to get $100, so you're playing the Lower East Side in New York, you're lucky to get that $100. If you could get 10 people to pay for a live stream ticket at $10, there's another $100 gross, then everybody takes their cut. But that's like the extra little bonus. It's not about saving, it's not about fixing, it's about adding another little piece in there. And if anybody has like thoughts on that, because I know like Knitting Factory, Knitting Factory used to do this, so this is not something new, but it's just the fact that it's being put in place as a system that you can just flip the switch. I really think this is important. It's really an interesting topic.
I was actually going to bring up the Knitting Factory. I worked there, like, God, probably over 10 years ago when they first put in those cameras to do that. This is obviously not a new thing, but I do think that it does offer, an additional revenue stream for some of these artists. And, with the cautiousness of, people wanting to be, maybe not feeling so comfortable being in a big arena, even with quote unquote social distancing, it does offer another, way to see a, a band's performance.
I think it'll also be interesting to see how far they go with the installation, whether or not these will be RoboCam operated, pan tilt zoom cameras, or it'll be a single camera shoot, and what the quality will be. And, you're also somewhat limited by how much the engineer puts into the stream audio mix. So it'll just be interesting to see how this pans out.
Does the article mention who retains ownership of the stream or
Oh,
the
yeah.
content after?
So yeah, what licensing is going to have to be needed? Who is in charge of that? What channel is it going out to? Intellectual property? Who owns the rights? Other licenses? This is interesting because I know for a fact, like I had it when I was doing the seminar, like a company was like, hey, we'd like to sponsor this and we'd like to live stream this show. And people freaked out when they heard this. And this goes back to like 2015, 2014. So like live streaming was just like, whoa, it was there, but people were still freaking out about it. And now it's become more, in our vernacular by force, I guess. You talk about an entire sector that had a 100% adoption rate as of this time last year. So now that people are starting to be accustomed to it, but also where is the licensing problems? Where is the ownership, intellectual property?
I worked in the boxing space sort of simultaneously while I was working in the music industry, because there was a lot of crossover around big boxing events. And one of the primary means for boxing shows is pay-per-view. And my experience there tells me that the numbers on this are probably going to be bigger than they think, because even events that we predicted smaller numbers for ended up breaking records across the board. So if the pay-per-view model is actually more easily translated than you think, but for an older demographic. So I think it depends also on every event. If there's still sort of some element of lock-in or some sort of element of fear, I don't think you're going to get the younger audience paying or opting to pay into it. But older people that can't get a sitter or are less mobile or don't want to fly all over the country or make long journeys to get to venues are definitely going to opt into this, because they definitely will want to offset the cost of all of having to do that live experience, but doing it from home instead. I think they're going to end up doing well with it.
Well, if I can, I just kind of want to chip in my 2 cents. I think that on the plus side, we could be looking at it as the extra 100 seats, that the club can't actually hold for a sold out show, and that could provide a little cherry on top. Like we said, where we could be adding the extra 100 seats on that one side of the coin. But then on the flip side of the coin, I think it's really important to consider things like who owns the footage and where does the licensure lie. What are the clearances? And two, when we think live streaming, I think it's really easy to kind of mix up something that gets filmed and then rebroadcast, even for a week or a few days. We tend to kind of confuse that with something that is actually live streamed. It's available and it's there and then it's gone. And so the licensures and the clearances are actually different when we're looking at live streaming versus video on demand, just like the licensures and clearances would be different if we were looking at performing live versus releasing a DVD of the performance. And so on both sides of the coin, I can see a lot of richness on both sides of the coin. And Angela, I know you said earlier you were like what did you call yourself? The NFT Grinch, was it?
I said the resident poo-pooer, but I love the
Okay.
NFT Grinch. I'm gonna make a PTR. I'm gonna
Oh
make
no.
a Grinch PTR.
The NFT Grinch. Well, I know a lot of people who are kind of live streaming Grinches and Grouches, and I know a lot of people who are for live streaming, and so I can see it on both sides of the coin. It could be the extra 100 nosebleed seats on the cherry side of the coin, and it could be a huge paperwork and legal disaster on the Grinch side of the coin.
And
I know
just
at
to
the
add
venue
in, it's like, one of the things just going the NFT Grinch. One of our people live streaming over in Facebook, it just said NFTs to me means no effing tokens. So, yeah, I know we're
Yep.
talking about it, but it's important. I mean, it is a topic of discussion. So I'd like to just, I do want to just, I think, Jamie, I know there is
Grinches
something you wanted to
unite.
bring in, and I want to just wrap up. So, Jamie, I just want to get your thoughts. I want to move on to the next article and table this for the round table when we get back to it, because we still have a few more articles to go through.
I was moving up for later on in the conversation, but if you guys want a PTR, there you go. You can have your Grinch.
All right, I'll scroll that up so the people in the live streaming world can see that.
While we PTR,
All
I'll
right.
go ahead and reset the room quickly for everybody who's just joining us or listening in. We are the Music News Power Hour, where we scour the World Wide Web for music news headlines that we find interesting. We think you might too. Please join us here every day, 12 to 1 Eastern, where we cover all the music news headlines that you actually want to hear about. And please come to the stage and discuss the headlines with us right here on Clubhouse for iOS. If you're in the audience on Clubhouse and you'd like to discuss or bring something to the stage, perhaps there's an article you'd like to share that we didn't cover or a topic you want to discuss, please go ahead and put your hand up. We will go ahead and bring you to the stage. We have a few more headlines to cover. Peter, over to you.
Right on. Okay, great. So Napster, this one's from Music Ally. Napster, haven't heard that name in a while unless you were paying attention to the merger with Melody VR. And so Napster has now 5 million plus users and monthly revenues of $8 million. So it starts off newly merged with Napster. Melody VR, well, it's called Napster for now, has published an update on its operational performance. Quote, the acquisition of Napster's streaming service in December 2020 has enabled the group to accelerate its subscription-based revenue model, which now boasts more than 5 million users, including subscribers from the past services worldwide. It revealed in a filing to the London Stock Exchange, PAS being platform as a service, if you're wondering. So, continue with the quote, pro forma revenues from the Napster streaming company service and Melody VR service combined totaling $96 million in 2020, and during January 2021 generated monthly revenues of $8 million. The filing noted that the merged companies are now working on a new music service to launch later this year, blending audio, live streams, documentaries, and other video content, as well as ticketed live events. That is the paragraph I wanted everybody to make sure they heard. That music service, blending audio, live streams, documentaries, and other video content, as well as ticketed live events. In other news, Napster has secured and expanded around $11 million funding commitment from investor Nice and Green, taking its 2021 funding to around $40 million. The company has also hired former Warner Music exec Emmy Lovell as its chief strategy officer. So this, again, is in the show notes, and there are links in this article. Since it's kind of an overview, there are links to dive in deeper if you're interested. So again, musicindustrycity.com, click on the panel that says Clubhouse Information Center, and you'll find the links here. All right, so just a couple more here. We're going to go with music streaming. This one was brought to us by my other co-host for the morning show, and this one is on Hypebot. It's been in a few different areas. It's starting to circle around. It was originally on the Times co.uk a few days ago, but it's starting to get picked up on other outlets. This one is music streaming algorithms. Are they sexist? While predictive data has certainly proven itself to be useful, algorithms written as they are by humans are inherently flawed and may be dishing up a hefty dose of sexism when it comes to curating our music streaming options. So this is a guest post from Fred Jacobs of Jacobs Media Strategies. So they talk about it goes on in pretty detail. And it's like, what's harmless, but what happens when AI takes us away from content that in fact should be exposed to us? To that end, there are emerging questions about whether streaming music algorithms are inherently sexist. That's right. Do most streaming algorithms steer us away from female artists? So who's asking these questions? It's not just activists or social justice groups. It's in fact academicians investigating whether AI purposely or by happenstance stacks the musical deck against women. So actually, even going back further, is originally originally it was in the New York Post reporting on this phenomenon on a story by Hannah Sparks. It was called "Streaming Music Algorithm More Likely to Play Male Artists." This was studied by university professors representing schools in Netherlands and Spain. The research revealed streaming customers might have to wait 7 or 8 songs deep on the playlist or a string of songs to hear a tune performed by a female artist. They've analyzing streaming choices among 330,000 music listeners over a 9-year time span. Their conclusion: only 1 in 4 songs played featured women. So it goes on. There's a lot more in depth here. And, they even talk about comparing it to the old radio statement where it's like you can't play 2 female artists in a row on radio. So there's a lot here to unpack. It's a really good article, very in depth, and I encourage you to take a look at it. And I'm going to finish up with one more music streaming service discussion, and it's your daily dose of Spotify. This one comes from Consequence of Sound. It is Spotify partners with live music streaming platform Nugs.net for virtual concert integration. Spotify's subscribers will now be able to view Nugs.net full archive of concerts. During the pandemic, countless artists ranging from Pearl Jam, Stone Temple Pilots beyond fled to Nugs.net to premiere special live stream concerts for fans while they were stuck in quarantine. Now it's ready to widen its viewership even further. Earlier today, Spotify announced a partnership with the premier live music streaming platform, which means that Spotify users worldwide will now have access to the rich catalog Nugs.net has to offer. So it's a little backstory. Founded in 1997 as a fan site for downloading live music sets. They've streamed more than 900 performances in HD, 4K from the likes of Metallica, Pearl Jam, Dead & Company, and Jimmy Buffett over the past year alone. Spotify's users can find Nugs virtual events at Spotify Concert Hub's tab under the On Tour section of any specific artist profile page. All right, so it goes on, and this is one of the many moves Spotify is making as of late. Last month, the company announced a new pay transparency initiative called Loud and Clear, following worldwide protests by fans championing the Justice of Spotify campaign. Fortunately, it is increasing the money of artists make per stream. Spotify currently pays some artists as little as 0.0038 per stream, among the lowest rates of any platform, and they probably won't be changing that anytime soon. It said Spotify is focused on expanding into 80 new markets, and this is what they ended with, because why priorities taking care of the very musicians who give your platform a reason to exist in the first place. So with that is the opinion of the writer. I think it's really interesting that Spotify, and I've been saying this before, is like Spotify is not a music streaming service. It is an entertainment platform, and the verticals and new directions, and going back to tying this in, if I may do so, is that Melody VR, Napster, and again, looking at that statement, what they're talking about is blending audio, live streams, documentaries, and other video content, ticketed live events. You're going to see a whole new platforms. These platforms are developing and emerging, and it's not just going to be music centric anymore. So how do we look at this as an industry to say, what can we do to capitalize on this and do the best for music exposure, discovery, and monetization? And that is going to be it for the news read. We are going into the round table. Eli, any thoughts on any of these articles that stuck out for you?
Oh my gosh, it's been a full day, and I think it's really interesting the algorithms discussing whether or not playlists are sexist. I think that's an age-old question, just in so many aspects of the music industry. We were just discussing headlines recently about a festival with headlines. You know, there were several festivals with headlines that skewed towards male headliners, and rather than gender equality, and what that meant, and what it would take to remedy that, and how everyone felt about that. So I think the gender equality thing is kind of striking me because that's a bell that we've rung recently on another subject. It sounds familiar to me in the headlines here recently.
Right on.
I was just dying laughing at this because when you first read that, I didn't see it as being sexist towards the artists on the playlist. I saw it as being sexist toward the listener. So I'm thinking, like, does Spotify think I'm a 27-year-old dude? Like, is that what they're trying to say? Like, I thought they meant that they were skewing the playlist towards what they thought the listener, the gender they thought that the listener was.
Oh
Well,
no,
that
that would be in so much trouble.
I mean, that actually could be, depending on what you have set up in your profiles, your gender, your age, wherever they're getting that data from. So if you signed up with a Facebook account and you said your birthday, if you said, I'm Angela, my birthday is November 1st, so that means you're a Scorpio and you were born in, 2000, so you're, 20 years old. So and Spotify is linked to your Facebook
Keep
account, so
talking, keep
all right.
talking. But I
So
mean that
so what we
what that sort of drives home is this sexism based on me being a woman that I would like
eh,
female artists, or that it's the sexism is
Right.
based on me liking female.
What exactly does sexism mean in
no.
this context? Exactly,
Right
exactly.
on. So, do want to make sure invite people up. I mean, if you haven't hit the invite button, that just means we were reading and doing something. So, if you have any thoughts on the topics, there's something you want to chime in about, um, just feel free to raise your hand and come up to the stage and share any thoughts. So, let's open this up. Eli, you want to just open this up then? Was there anyone you want to lead off with, or should we just let people chime in?
I think we should ask folks if they have any thoughts on any particular headlines. But before we do that, I do want to give a shout out. We've got some family here up on the stage, but also I see that Jordan and Ryan and Eric have joined the conversation here on the Clubhouse stage. So welcome, and thanks for being here with us. I'm curious to know what the panel thinks of today's headlines. We have some excellent topics on the table here.
So I actually had a comment about the AI being sexist. So one of the issues with AI is it's only as good as the data that we give it. And with the industry kind of being historically sexist, the AI seeing, like the majority of popular artists from this decade are male, it's going to tend towards that, and trying to get it to unlearn that sexism is kind of a monumental task when the data kind of historically reinforces that.
That's pretty much exactly what I was going to say, Ryan. I think that there's a question there of, is the algorithm sexist, or is the content that's being fed to the algorithm making it sexist? Or should I say, making the algorithm deliver sexist results?
And I definitely think it's. Oh,
Go on.
yeah, I definitely think it's the content. I don't know if anyone's out there kind of maliciously being like, okay, we're going to make this algorithm sexist. It's kind of a black box idea where you feed in this stuff and it outputs this stuff, but we don't necessarily know what's the algorithm's doing in the middle to kind of go from A to B.
It feels a bit like taking one of these AI brains and feeding it a whole load of Beatles tracks to listen to, and then expecting it to come out with Pink Floyd. It's like, if you feed it a whole load of content that's in this style, it's going to churn out a whole load of content in this style.
Right. Going back to what you initially said there, about like it's an industry thing, and the article, because I skipped through, is a pretty dense article, but I skipped through and I going back, it's like, and this takes us back to an apparent artificial intelligence bias and what can be done to level the music playing field. As the academics point out, it starts with the music industry. According to their analysis, fewer than 1 in 4 artists, coming at 23%, in the 2019 Billboard 100 were women or gender minorities, and only 1 in 5 registered songwriters is a woman.
I guess that's the mic drop.
Yeah, I'm guessing it's not even necessarily as historical as I was thinking it was, considering that's 2019.
All right. So we also covered Reservoir going public. NFT, the concert selling for 1.2 million. Lupe Fiascos, who's in with the live stream tie-in. Live Nation with the live streaming everything. I know that was something I mean definitely can bring on back, because that is interesting what to do with the licensing, if anybody has any familiarity with that. And also Spotify partnering with live music streaming platforms and looking at what Spotify is doing as their expansion. We can go to any of the topics, or if somebody has another topic they want to bring to the table, shout it out.
I mean, on the Live Nation streaming front, I think that's just continued monopolization. From a cannibalizing perspective of tickets, you don't want to have too many live streams. So if you figure they're probably doing one per tour and it's to reach any fans who weren't able to get to a show, it's probably the last night of the tour, the band has had time to prepare for it, and they're only going to do it at a Live Nation venue. So if you're not a Live Nation venue on that tour, you're not getting that live stream date.
Well, the one thing on the Live Nation one is they've already done this. They did it for almost 2.5, 3 years. At one point in time, they had paired in with AT&T, and one point in time, they paired in with YouTube or Yahoo, and they did a show from a venue every day for a year, is what it originally started at, and it was called Live 365. And they would bounce it East Coast, West Coast, somewhere in the Midwest, then East Coast, West Coast, and they filmed from a venue, one concert. It wasn't sold, it wasn't anything. It was just a live stream of that show, and unless you tuned in at that time, you didn't get to see it. There was no rebroadcast, there was no reprint anywhere of it. So Live Nation has already done this and experimented with it. So if they're going to push it off and try and monetize on it somewhere, Live Nation is a producer of tours as well as a venue owner. They're working within their own brand and their own section.
Another concern is the quality. I mean, are they going to have a board operator? And I think you mentioned like the PTZ cameras. Is it going to be, what kind of setup is it going to be? Multi-camera? Is it, going to have like indoor drones or something? It's like, and are the artists going to say, all right, we have to pay now? Now, also, it's the scale of the artist. I mean, you're talking about, would a fledgling artist want to do this? Is it going to benefit them? Is it going to be cost effective? Are they going to take what kind of cut is it? I think there's a lot of details that would want to see. But if it's Live Nation, I'm sure they're going to offer it to their upper drawer level bands. And I think that's the question, is then quality, because you're not. I mean, are they going to you bring in your own front of house sound person? Are you going to bring in your own board somebody to run the video board and do the cuts? Are there going to be overlays? Are going to be lower thirds? Can you have any kind of input on what's going to be the feed?
There are also a lot of legacy artists. It might trend actually the other way, Peter, because a lot of the legacy artists have had experiences where they were filmed doing a performance, may not have had their best night, and then that's what's out there in perpetuity, and most artists want to put their best foot forward, so to speak. And even if something is streamed, only streamed and not recorded at the source, there's nothing saying that, the end user doesn't have the ability to capture and, with the artist's permission or not, rebroadcast that.
And I will say from working them, when Live Nation did it, we pulled in a full-on production truck, multi-camera operators. We did it like a full-on TV broadcast shoot when we did it. So we had an entire mixer out in the truck doing a down mix for broadcast with an entire crew, a director of photography out there, usually sitting with the tour manager, watching the show in the truck as they did a production cut and sent it out at like a 10-second delay.
I'm pretty sure I did one of these shows at the Cat's Cradle in Chapel Hill, and it was the production was fantastic. I feel though that it was available all evening because I remember watching it back at the hotel that evening, but I don't remember seeing it after that.
Yeah, I think it was up for like 4 hours.
That would make sense. But the production was fantastic.
Yeah, I mean the trucks we had. I was House of Blues and Goodyear Theater. The truck we had was LNG rolled in with a truck that they would have done baseball with, and had four guys come in and a couple of small single focus cameras nestled up on the stage, so you didn't see guys running across the stage. And we did a shoot. They were great looking. I mean, I sat at front of house. One of them I remember I did Annie DeFranco, and I sat at front of house and I said, "Hey, can I get a monitor so I can see what's going to TV in case I need to correct front light?" And they were like, "Yep, there you go." And I was like, "Okay."
Yeah, I mean
As a
this.
consumer, I'm far less interested in it though if it's not on demand. Like if I could go to the show, I'd go to the show. And if I can't get a ticket, I'd want to be able to watch it when I want to watch it. I don't know if I want to sit there at 9:30 at night on a Saturday instead of doing something else, and watching it on my TV. I mean, I might do if we're locked in, but if I'm able to do something else, I'm going to do something else. So I like that. I like the availability of it only if it's available for a limited time.
I think the legacy acts there, it makes a lot of sense because they're going to have an audience that maybe can't get to the show.
Or an act that doesn't come to that area.
Right, which then raises the question of what geographic restrictions would there be?
So the one of the things, Jamie, you were talking about like bringing in a huge production crew. I think what the goal of what they're doing here with Veeps is, they talk about making it a turnkey production setup that it seems like, okay, we're just maybe have a few cameras, or it could be just simple like static cameras or a 3 camera setup or something, where maybe for some smaller bands this is great, this is fine, but then the production value to really up that production value. So that's the thing is, where does this production setup, like at what level is it going to be? Is it even worth it for if it's not up to par with the level of an artist bringing in? I mean, they're talking about doing this. Here are the venues, which would be. I just had that. So the Fillmore in San Francisco, and House of Blues in Chicago and New Orleans, the Wiltern in Los Angeles, and a number of amphitheaters. So Shoreline in California and the George in Washington. So I'm sure the amphitheaters will have these are good venues that you can put in something. I mean, how much space and what kind of production can you get out of these? Are anybody here familiar with those venues in that live setting?
If I remember, at least the Fillmore and the House of Blues, Dan Chertoff, who was the VP for Live Nation, I know most of the House of Blues, and I'm pretty sure the Fillmores, when they got redone a few years ago, got video systems put in, at least very rudimental video systems, like a 3 camera system, one on stage, 2 out in the house. I know that one of the slickest systems I've ever seen is actually in the small theater at the Rock Hall, where one guy can come in, control 3 cameras, and not even go in the room. And he cuts it and edits it right there in the back of the sound booth.
I'm pretty sure the Wiltern is equipped with all sorts of things because I think we did an event there for it was a Perez Hilton event that was a sort of private slash invitation only event, and it was simul broadcast from several different spaces. So I don't remember if they brought in an independent. It's been about 15 years, so I don't remember if they brought in an independent company to do it. But I feel like a lot of that stuff was already in house, and they just needed to sort of plug and play.
Yeah, I mean, amphitheaters will already have the cameras because they're projecting to the screen so that the people on the lawn can see what's going on. So I would think that they're just using some of that footage as well. Otherwise, you're adding more camera people into a barricade that probably doesn't have room for it.
Well, I kind of feel like, just from a venue standpoint, that putting images or footage up on a jumbotron or on a big screen in the venue itself is kind of a little bit different of a thing than live streaming. So I guess I'm not equipped to speak on the differences between the two, but it definitely seems like two different animals. It definitely seems like two different line items on the budget.
Yeah,
I
I
guess is a
mean,
better way of saying it.
yeah, I mean, the iMag might not be what you want going out to the live feed.
True, but I mean, the more cameras that you're adding to the setup, the more potential you have to distract the audience that are physically there.
I work in a venue that has this a system like this installed, and it was a conscious effort not to have the stream feed not in the performance area to distract from the performance. It does show in the bar areas and such, and you could pull up the feed in the dressing rooms, but the audience does not get to see that.
It also speaks to the question that in the price of admission, let's imagine it's, for the sake of the conversation, 10 or $15 or pounds or whatever to buy in to view that from home. I mean, the alternative is fan camera footage from YouTube to see what's going on at the event. And in a best case scenario situation, you're looking at multiple HD cameras, shot over several different venues on several different days for a sort of DVD, Blu-ray, or whatever the past versions of those things were, live concert show. This feels like it's someplace in the middle, and that the production may not be as high on the list as the access at the moment. I mean, obviously, the artist is going to want the best possible production, but if it's, like we say, a pretty much stationary set of cameras rather than, a full staff who are directing and producing the show as if it's completely its own entity aside from the live event, it feels to me like it's more like granting you access into the same live event experience you'd have if you were in the room, which seems less like it's production heavy.
Eric, were you going to say something?
Yeah, I'd love to tap in with a question if we get space for it, because I'm sort of in a situation here, and my question to couch it first is to the panel. How much bias do you see out of traditional engineer studio, followed a rock band around my whole life, I know gear in and out, audio, video, etc., versus streaming is these bunch of kids that are just playing with toys, which is, in what I know firsthand, is not the case. I'm curious how much bias is trying to couch this conversation into we got to be one or the other, or are we willing to recognize that we can spend a fraction of the budget and stream the shit out of something better than most of these venues are doing it now, and I can do it from my freaking bedroom. And that's part of, I see, the generational gap. An effort that I'm about to lean into here has a concept around it that is not specifically in a venue sense, but does have a physical component that will bring a similar scenario to people coming to space, community, stream it, podcast. And what I'm being tapped to produce is something that conceptually is ESPN, First Take, Stephen A. Smith and another head sort of space in a revolving guest star.
Right. So
Around the subject of money, but production.
what exactly would you?
Actually,
Sorry, go on, Eli.
I want to speak to your first question, Eric, if I may, because you were talking about the difference between somebody who is a production professional and somebody who is playing with webcams in their bedrooms, and the difference between that. And I just kind of want to take a moment and reflect, for those of us who can kind of put ourselves in that space or really even remember it firsthand. I want to think about electric guitars, and when electric guitars came to prominence, how many people said those things are noise. And anyone learning to play them is just learning to play with toys that make noise. And that was just not true. And now there are professional guitar players. And I remember getting into recording as a kid and being told that playing with a 4-track or an ADAT was playing with toys, and I needed to, study harder and learn more important things. And so I think that at any stage of any game, especially when we look at music and music production, because some people would say that it's not a maybe a necessary thing, like a doctor or a lawyer or an accountant is necessary, but you don't have to play the guitar, some people would say. And so I think that it kind of gets marginalized a lot whenever there's new technology in the music industry. I think it's very easy for anybody who has learned and put in the time to learn the old technology to say simply, well, that's toys. You can't do from your house what I can do from the stage or with my professional studio. And yet guitar players with amplifiers learned how to make so many decibels in their bedrooms with absolutely no problem whatsoever. And so just to speak to your first question, I want to say that I think any new development in technology that fits into a smaller bag than last generation's technology gets deemed a toy, and anybody who's playing with that is playing with a toy. But I just want to point out that engineers who grew up being told that their ADAT and their 4-tracks were toys are running professional studios now and winning Grammys for their work in audio engineering. And so let's not discredit the folks who are playing with toys right now. They are going to be on the cutting edge of all of this technology. They're going to show up, just to be fair, I want to say that, myself included, those folks who are playing with those toys right now, those streaming toys in their bedrooms, they're going to show all of us the way, and they're going to show all of us how to use this technology to our advantage and bridge the gap that we might have between any technology we already know and any technology that we don't know. So yes, I do feel like there's a bit of a disparity between professionals and amateurs right now, because that gap is so large between someone who has a $50,000 studio versus a kid who has a $50 webcam or an iPhone in his bedroom. Absolutely, there's a huge difference, but I'm not convinced that it can be reduced to just playing with toys, and I'm not convinced that it isn't useful. So I just kind of wanted to break in, and before we go
Yeah.
on, I want to take just a moment and thank everybody in the room and on the stage, because as we are coming up on the hour here, we try to wrap. This is the Music News Power Hour. We do try to keep it to 60 minutes, but we are here every day, 12 to 1 Eastern. We are live on Clubhouse and also on streaming platforms, both audio and video. So you can find us not just on Clubhouse, but just about everywhere. Please make sure you tune in with us every weekday, 12 to 1 Eastern, for all the music news headlines that you actually want to hear about. And please do join in our discussion. We want to hear from you as well. If there's anything you want to contribute, or if there's an article that we've missed that you want to make sure that we cover. So as we come into the hour, I just want to throw it out to the stage and see if anybody has any final thoughts for us on these articles that we discussed today.
Hey, Eli,
And
this is
and with
Jamie.
that, just really quick, I am going to put 2 minutes overtime on the clock today. All right, so I'm
love
putting the 5 minute clock countdown, and we are go 4 minutes 55 and counting. Take it away, Jamie.
Hey, Eli, the one thing I will add to that also is you have to remember the end user. I heard it from an old recording artist that taught everybody, and he goes, you can have the greatest set of studio monitors and mix on the greatest gear, but your end user is listening to it on a Walkman with a pair of headphones. To always remember where it's going to. Not everybody has audiophile equipment. Everybody is listening. Kids are looking at things on phones and tablets and whatnot.
So about the content, you could have all the greatest equipment and it looks sharp, but if the content or the performance is not there, the engagement, I mean, live streaming, there's live streaming where it's just we're live streaming a concert and people can have a passive engagement and passive viewing, and they can lean back and they can project it onto wherever they want to watch it. Or there is live streaming that is engaging, like Twitch or YouTube, using those platforms where it's from the home, from the bedroom, from the basement, or from the rehearsal studio, where it's like you have that engagement with your audience. And that's a different type of live streaming as opposed to the concert live streaming and the experience. So any other final thoughts? We are down. We got 3 minutes left. Want to run the room. Let's head it. Angela, any final thoughts?
I do want to recommend the Netflix documentary Coded Bias, which is an excellent insight into how AI, to Andy's point, how AI is only as biased as the data that's fed into it. So if that topic that was brought up earlier interests anyone, it might be worth watching. There's a lot of tremendous content in it to talk about how AI could be biased towards race, age, sex, etc. So it's definitely worth a watch. And as always, Mario Kart.
And the
I
old
love that you ended with
that
that.
nice.
You're
Well
killing me.
done. I
You're
mean, there's
killing
the
me.
old
That's Angela. Angela, our UK consultant. Excellent, excellent. Anybody else? Final thoughts for us as we wrap the room here. We're into our final seconds of today's Music News Power Hour. We will be back tomorrow. We do our Friday week in review, so make sure you join us tomorrow too. Final thoughts?
Hey, Peter, I tried to get hold of Tim, but we haven't been able to. So, yeah, I just wanted to give out a shout for his thing this evening.
I appreciate it. Yeah.
Yeah. I didn't know whether you had any details there to shout out, or do you want me to just to let everybody know what's going on? Or
I have the article here, and it is going to be in the show notes. So I'll just read it really quick. Or I did have it. Why don't you shout it out, and I'll pull up the article.
Effectively, Tim's running. Tim is the CEO of Endless, the multi-collaboration, global collaboration music tool that you can get for your iPhone, and they are doing a live stream tonight via Clubhouse, and they're going to pick out highlights from the live stream where everybody's collaborating, get the best bits and mint those as NFTs and sell them straight away afterwards. And the good news is they're selling them on a site called Hikeknonk, I think, which uses doesn't use Ethereum. It uses a coin called Tezos, and it allows people to buy things at a much, much lower level of price point.
Yes, and that is
awesome.
I just put that in our show notes, and okay, so that's going to be in the show notes now. Boom. So you can refresh the show notes, and that is where you can find the show notes is musicindustrycity.com, and click on the little graphic that says Clubhouse Information Center, and that'll take you to the show notes list where we have all the articles that we cover during the week, and it's a running list, so it gets updated only Monday morning. We start fresh, and then by Friday we do the week in review. And Eli, it's almost that time. We can review. We got 45 seconds left.
It is almost that time. Yeah, week in review coming up tomorrow right here in the Music News Power Hour. So make sure that you join us. We're going to take a look at all the articles that we've covered this week, and it is quite a lot of news to take a look at this week. So make sure that you do join us tomorrow for the Friday week in review right here at 12 to 1 Eastern. And for myself, Eli Window, and my co-host Peter Schwing, we want to thank you so much for joining us today, and we will see you right back here tomorrow.
Yeah, tomorrow. And weather report. We got to do the weather report tomorrow. We're adding that back into the mix.
Oh, I'm going to cram that in right here. Quick weather report for your local weather. You should check in with yourself because we don't have any way of knowing. So there you go. That's the weather report for today. We'll see you tomorrow at 12. For the
All right, everybody. Thank you so much. Thank you, Eli. Thank you, everybody, joining on the stage. Thank you, everybody, for hanging out and listening to us ramble on. I'll see you tomorrow.
Thanks, Peter. Thanks, Eli.
Thanks so much, everybody.
Thanks,
we'll
Eli.
see you tomorrow.
Thanks, Peter.
Good to see you.
Later.
See you guys. Later. Toodles.
Whoever said toodles is my new best friend.